one that we zeroed in on is the second one on the list. Marcus Stroman will be the biggest name traded at the deadline. So I want to talk about that, and then is this the real target for the Texas Rangers at the deadline?
I don't think that they're going to be that specific.
Okay.
I get that Stroman is probably more available right now than Dylan Cease. Stroman is more popular than Dylan Cease. He is better this year, too. Without a doubt, he's better. But
he's a sub-3 ERA.
But Stroman, I'd have to look. Do you have his contract status?
Yes, I do.
So how many years does he have left?
So after this, he has 1 year, and it is a player option at $21 million. So
he's not going to opt into that.
Yeah, that's what I would assume. And so this is another.
So he's a free agent.
Probable rental here.
I don't mind that at all for the Rangers. I would like that. Now, that being said, he is a very, I don't know if you want to call flamboyant. I mean, he is. Sure. He is putting on a show on the mound, and I think some people really hate it, and I think some people somewhat enjoy it. I know that he can be a good teammate, and that other people, like you just talked about Ronald Acuna Jr. You know who didn't like Ronald Acuna Jr.? Freddie Freeman. They did not get along at all.
I do remember that.
And so, because Freddie Freeman's like, hey, I get it, man, your antics and all the things that you're doing, the pitcher's too small, doing a lot of LeBron stuff. But we want to calm that down a little bit and pick your moments, because when we're down 5-1 in the 8th inning and you hit a solo home run and you celebrate it like, hey, look at me. It's kind of like, no, look at us. We're losing 5-2 now. That helps us. We're getting a little bit closer, but it's kind of like being down 21 in the fourth quarter with 2 minutes to go and a guy gets a touchdown pass and he's like, look at me. Yeah. I've now changed the world.
I still remember the most famous version of that for me is when A&M had a player who got a sack when they were in the midst of losing to Oklahoma 77-0, and he started to celebrate, and I was like, yeah, you did a really great job, buddy.
I will say that the Rangers have really good team chemistry. I'm not saying Stroman will ruin that at all, but Stroman will be a very, I don't know if high character, because that would say like he's a very high character. He's going to have things that could turn some players off, and you're going to have to be okay with that.
And does, at least for the past several years, and this year in particular, does he have the results to kind of back that up? Because it seems like he does.
Yeah, I think the other thing too, Mike, probably the most important question is, does Chris Young, is he okay with that? Because when, somebody was pointing out, maybe it was Sean, was all the Rangers players that were in the All-Star game, you were like, what? There's no single standout personality out of that bunch except for maybe Adolis. Adolis, and he's even got a unique, he's under the radar personality.
Sure.
But Stroman is very different. So if Chris Young doesn't improve, because this is a dude that I think we all understand, Kevin, this is Bill Walsh level. I'm paying attention to the announcer. I don't like what he's doing.
Right.
Get rid of him.
Right.
He's paying attention on a very different level than everybody else because he wants to recreate the brand or live the brand of the Rangers. So if he doesn't like a guy, I don't think that he's there. I do wonder if he's like, hey, Boach, what are your thoughts on this guy? Can you handle him, and will it work?
I do think the Rangers are okay for trading for him. I think that they're okay adding, from what I understand, because obviously Stroman's name over the last month has been brought up. And I think the Rangers are interested. I think the Rangers would be willing to trade for him and go, hey, we understand he's a very individual person. He's going to put on a show on the mound, and hopefully he's putting on a show because he's getting everybody out so he can put on a show. But I don't want to say this is their specific target. This is the Rangers have now looked in on Marcus Stroman, and anything else will be a failure if they don't get him, or they can't believe that they can't get Stroman from Chicago, so they're just going to add like Luis Giolito. I don't think they'd be disappointed with that. I don't think they'd be like, man, we tried for Stroman first and couldn't get him. I think there's still, with 3 weeks left, there's still quite a few options on the table that the Rangers would be happy with, and I don't think they've ranked Stroman as the number one target.
Can I ask you about a couple of options that have come in on the fan text? Because one of them we have talked about for, 2 weeks, and I'm curious if you still think he's a good choice, is, well, first off from the 714, Lance Lynn, but then also I want to circle back to Max Scherzer. Now, Lance Lynn is not having a good season. But,
you had the but?
Go ahead.
Oh, he's been great lately.
Yes.
Horrible start to the year, but if you look at maybe his June and July stats, they're going to be very different from his season stats. And I'm not saying,
believe it or not, his June stats are not that great. But his last start in July is fantastic.
His last 5 are weird. You know,
okay,
like he had
give the stats on each individual game.
All right.
Because I talked to Gordon Beckham about this, and he's like, man, Lance Lynn's been pitching really well for us lately.
All right, I'm going to give you innings pitched, runs, and strikeouts. Okay, hits. Oh, okay.
I need to know kind of whip to give me an idea.
Furthest back. 5 innings.
What date?
6/13.
Okay.
5 innings, 6 hits, 4 runs, 6 strikeouts.
And 2 homers.
Okay, so that's not good. That's a below average start.
7 innings, 4 hits, 3 runs,
Very
16
good.
strikeouts.
You should win most games. If your starting pitcher does that, you should win most games.
I don't put that. Yeah, no, I don't put that on him.
5.5 innings, Kevin, or
Like
whatever.
5 and a third. 5 and 2/3.
6 hits.
That's okay.
3 runs, 7 strikeouts.
So that's okay. That's an okay
4
start.
innings, 6 innings, 8 hits, 5 runs, 7 strikeouts.
Who's that against?
3 home runs.
That was against LA.
Dodgers?
Dodgers.
Okay.
No, I'm sorry.
Angels.
Okay.
And then the last game was fantastic.
He was off.
7 innings, 1 hit, 1 walk, 11 strikeouts.
Okay.
So all I was saying is for the month of June, his ERA just for June was 6.28. Okay. Now this last
you can probably get him for nothing. I'll say that. Those numbers right there at his age, where Chicago's at, you could trade, and I'm not trying to throw anybody under the bus. You can trade your 10th round pick from this year and be like, you're fine. They'll take it.
Scherzer, because
he's struggled lately, but
and that's what I was curious about is, and like Lance Lynn has worked here before, and
would want to be here.
Yeah, and you're right. If you look back, 2 of his last 4 starts were phenomenal. The ones around them are, they're fine to subpar. Whereas Max Scherzer has an amazing track record. He'll go to the Hall of Fame and all that good stuff. But his last couple starts have been his starts in July, because he had a run in June where you're like, hey, let's go get him. 8 innings, 6 innings, 6 innings, 1 run, 2 runs, 2 runs. You're like, hey, maybe July's been rough for him. How would y'all look at I know it matters what the Rangers think, but Stroman, Lynn, Scherzer, do you still default to Scherzer, or would Stroman be the guy depending on the price?
So this is, you can't answer it. It's a good question. I'm not saying you have a bad question, but you have to
know the price.
Yeah, you got to know the price. Stroman's going to cost you the most. Stroman's 32 years old. Scherzer's 38 years old with $43.3 million on his contract next year. Plus, you're picking up the $20 million left on it this year. So you're looking at a year-and-a-half pitcher at about $64 million. That's going to be a lot different, but that's also going to cost you a lot less to get. Stroman is going to cost you a little bit more to get. If I had to rank them in the playoffs, starting game 1 or game 2 for me, let's just say Evaldi's starting one of those games, I want Scherzer.
Mm-hmm.
Now, maybe I'm totally wrong on that. Maybe I'm going way off of too much history, and at 38 years old, we're seeing the downfall of Max Scherzer. That being said, I don't think I have to trade much for him, and I'm not picking up all that money. I am telling the Mets, here's the deal. You want to get rid of that money? I get it, man. You spent way too much. Not that Steve Cohen's not in any type of financial ruin or anything, but you got to pick up $13.3 million next year. The reason I say that exact number is I want to get his number down to $30 million next year.
Okay.
So I will pick up the $20 million this year and the $30 million next year for a $50 million pitcher. At that number, I will give you Justin Foscue trade over.
Okay.
Done.
Yeah.
So I don't know. What do you guys think if I give up? I'm not saying that'll work. I don't know how the Rangers rank their guys as much as, I see Baseball America or whatever. But if I just have to give up Justin Foscue and I get Max Scherzer for this year and next year to take DeGrom's spot,
I think it's worth considering. I realize it's going to bother people because that's shorter term view. But as we've talked about several times on this show, I think maybe you should have a shorter term view of this club in some perspective.
Also, I'm kind of in a mindset, Mike. I think you might be able to get a one-stop shop in Chicago and get a relief pitcher in addition to it, opposed to the other two. I don't know about the other two teams.
I'm guessing Stroman's going to cost you a good pitching prospect and a good player prospect, but I'm not saying Evan
Lance
Carter.
Lynn
I'm
might
not
cost
saying
you nothing to get.
Lance Lynn will cost you
a relief
nothing.
pitcher in addition.
But that's the scary part is you might get Lance Lynn and he might put up a 6 ERA here too.
And I do hear that. I take some odd comfort, especially if the price is low, in having another option. Like, I feel like we've kind of gotten in a little bit of a spot with the Rangers is your option is, I don't know, who's available because of the injuries you run into versus I would love to say, well, you got to pitch Lynn because he's been doing well, or you got to pitch this guy because he's been doing well.
So I wonder this too. Maddox had Scherzer. He's been his pitching coach before.
Fair.
So I don't know when you go to Maddox if he starts looking, if they say, hey, I want you to look at Max Scherzer's last 2 starts and you tell me what you see. You've had him. Why is he getting hit so hard? And what could you, if we traded for him, could you change him back into the Max Scherzer people know? Or is this a deal where you watch him and you go, hey, his stuff isn't breaking the way it's supposed to break? Because it happens to everybody. Everybody ends up failing in their sport and they can't do it anymore. Is Max Scherzer failing because he can't do it anymore? Or is Max Scherzer somehow failing because of pitch sequences, stuff like that? In a weird way, I don't know how he's 8-3 on a team that's that bad.
Yeah.
That's the one thing is like he's still winning games.
That is true.
And I thought Colby Lewis was one of the best I've ever seen at that is pitching to the score.
He's getting a lot of no decisions and losses. So take that for whatever you want.
It's interesting. If I'm just ranking them, I probably shouldn't rank Max Scherzer number 1. Just to be honest, I probably shouldn't.
I might go Stroman.
And then Stroman and then Lance Lynn. And Lance Lynn's by far the third. There's no way I can rank Lance Lynn anything but third.
Two of Scherzer's best years in the last 50 years of his career here have been with Mike Maddox. I'm just pointing out he was good with Mike Maddox.
I put Stroman 1, but I'm not dismissing the Scherzer idea.
And I'll be honest here, Stroman at times drives me insane.
Sure.
His antics. I'm not crazy about them. So there's a little bit of a bias, probably. Like, I'm being honest here. There might be a little bit of a bias. 1, Scherzer's greatness. 2, Stroman irks me at times. The other thing, too, is he was with the Blue Jays. Does that irk me at all? Like, I'm trying to go inside my own head, like doing my own therapy here. Right. Of like, does Stroman irk me because of 15 and 16 and him being on the Blue Jays?
That's a fair question.
And so, because Stroman's been really good, the Rangers would be a lot better if they had Marcus Stroman. The Rangers would be a lot better if they had Max Scherzer. But if they only do that, and then they go, this is our bullpen to save the last 3 innings, it's not going to work. Yeah. To Corey's point, you either need to get a reliever also in that trade, or you go, this is one trade. Now we need to trade for 2 really good right-handed relievers.
And just for all the people asking, here's what you need to happen. Because people are just asking about Ohtani in general, Ohtani with the Rangers. We've talked about that many times. Here's what you need. The Angels went into the break on a 1-9 run. You need them to go 1-9 in the first 10 games of the All-Star, after the All-Star break, to be like, well, crap. This ain't going nowhere. For that to even be in the realm of possibility that he gets traded. I'm not saying traded to the Rangers. I just mean traded, period.
To the Rangers.
Well, that would be good.